On the afternoon of Saturday, August 20th, 1966, a young man was flying his kite near Vintum Hill in the Niterói district of Rio de Janeiro when he discovered the bodies of two men lying in the tall grass. And as weird as it is to find two deceased men randomly on a secluded hillside, it's what was lying on and around their bodies that kicked off a mystery that has endured for over 50 years. Hey folks, you might have noticed that I'm trying a new on-camera format here, but have no fear because I will still continue to provide you with short-form docs on the dark, creepy, and plain weird. All feedback is appreciated in the comments, especially if you have any story suggestions you'd like me to cover. In the meantime, sit back, relax, let's get weird. 3 days earlier, on Wednesday, August 17th, 200 kilometers away from where the bodies were found, in a town called Campos dos Cotacazes, two friends, Manuel Pereira de Cruz, 32, and Miguel Jose Viana, 34, they woke up in their respective homes, had breakfast with their families, told their wives they were going to Sao Paulo to purchase some materials for their TV repair shop that they both owned and operated together. Both men were well regarded in Campos for their expertise in electronics and, TV stuff. They left their homes and boarded a bus to Niterói, not Sao Paulo as they told their families, and at 9 a.m. they boarded and sat in seats 25 and 26. And records show them arriving in Niterói at 2 p.m. that day. The first thing the two men do is they go to an electronics store and they have a conversation with the proprietor, a man they actually already know from previous business dealings. They have some small talk over an article about an AM/FM frequency generator that costs over $1 million Brazil bucks, which are called cruzeiros. Then they ask him for some components, which he did not have in stock. In fact, when he was later interviewed by police, he said he found that request weird. Both men should have known he never has that kind of part in stock, and in fact, his small town never had stuff like that. By the time they're leaving, it started to rain outside, so both men go to a nearby shop and they buy 2 raincoats. When later interviewed, the employee of that shop describes them both as walking out into the rain without putting on the raincoats. Then they walk to a nearby bar and they purchase 1 bottle of water. Again, in a later interview, the waitress there describes Miguel as very nervous and frequently checking his watch. Yet, even though they were in a huge hurry, they still waited for the receipt for the bottle. After she gave them the water and the receipt for the bottle, because in 1966 Brazil, you can return the glass bottle for like a little refund later. They exit the bar, and according to the waitress, she saw them hitchhike and get into a Jeep with 2 unknown men, and the 4 of them drive off into the direction of Vintum Hill. The 2 guys in the Jeep were never identified. That was 4:30 p.m., which was the last time they were seen alive. Around 7 p.m. that evening, a local lady and her 3 children are driving around the Vintum Hill area when they see some lights in the sky. They stop the car and they get out to watch it for a few minutes. She describes it as a bright oval orange object with a ring of fire which emits blue rays of light in many directions. She goes home, she tells her husband about the lights, he goes to the location, but he sees nothing. They decided not to tell anyone about this event at the time. 3 days later, the boy flying his kite reports the bodies to the authorities. But, this is where it gets frustrating because it wasn't until the next day that a small group of police eventually reached the bodies, due to a severe lack of urgency, I can only assume. According to reports, though, it was due to the rugged terrain and the weather. But reports show another young man came across the bodies the day before this kite-flying kid. He ran to his village, told a policeman who did nothing with this information. When the police finally do show up, they see the bodies of Manuel and Miguel lying side by side on their backs in the tall grass. Each man was wearing a raincoat, under which was a formal suit, like one you'd wear to a graduation or a wedding. But mind you, this is 1966, and dudes wore suits all the time. It was just like what people did. So contextually, it's more normal than it may seem to us today, even though they're walking off into nature dressed that way. So that's weird. What was definitely not normal is that each body had lying over his eyes homemade eye masks made of lead, not a material you would make eyewear out of. And they didn't have sticks like regular glasses to hold it on your ears. These had to be held up in front of your face or balanced, say if you're lying on your back on the ground. So, the heck for? We'll get back to that. Aside from these weird eye masks, there were no signs of trauma on their bodies nor any evidence of a struggle. Although one report later would say that they had found some blood around their mouths and noses. Also next to the bodies, the police found the empty water bottle and they found 2 wet towels, receipts for the raincoats and the water, and a small amount of money. Now, I know we just breezed by 2 wet towels because, look, it's raining They're all dressed up. Maybe it was to just dry off. I mean, it's unclear. What is clear is that later, reports would reveal that both men left home that day with 3 million cruzeiros, Brazil bucks, which is like a few $1,000s. So somewhere in their trip, they spent most of that money. And we don't know where. It sure as heck wasn't on raincoats and water. Inside Miguel's jacket was his wedding ring tied to a reading glass and a wristwatch, both of which he had removed. Now remember, Maria, the lady at the bar, said he kept constantly looking at his watch, right? Which means he took it off once he got to Ventum Hill. For some specific reason, presumably. Also in Miguel's pocket was a small notebook, in which was written these cryptic instructions, translated from Portuguese, of course. 4:30 p.m., be at the specified location. 6:30 p.m., swallow capsules, okay? After the effect, protect metals, wait for signal, Masque. Protect the metals. Is that why he took off his wedding ring and his watch and put them in his pocket? Maybe. Okay, so these dudes had a plan. A weird plan, but it's all laid out. Go to the hillside a few hours from home, take a capsule, protect your metals, not quite sure on that one, and then the mask. Put on the mask. The note with these instructions is found to be in Miguel's own handwriting, but the terms like ingest capsules are believed to not be part of his day-to-day vocabulary, according to his family. The assumption later by his family is that someone like a medical doctor maybe dictated this to him. But he's a technical guy, so it doesn't seem that far-fetched to use the word ingest. Okay, so really to get a better idea on what happened to these guys, we should probably go ahead and grab a toxicology report, find out what's in those capsules. Oh, the coroner's office is too busy today? No autopsy until weeks later, huh? Kinda like that was the most important part of this. When the autopsy was finally conducted, the internal organs of both victims were too badly decomposed for reliable testing. So, therefore testing for toxic substances was not carried out. I mean, hey, the notebook says ingest capsules. Seems important, but hey, I'm not a 1966 Brazilian coroner. Another interesting thing about that notebook that came up was that along with the cryptic message about the pill and the masks was a list of electronic part numbers. Some folks thought maybe these were like secret codes, but eventually the police were able to confirm that they were just simply innocuous part numbers from their day job. The weird message in the notebook was the closest the police have to any kind of motive or cause of death. And since there was no toxicology report, this drug they took could be frickin' anything. I mean, whether they knew it or not, it's likely poisonous since, it killed them. So what about the masks? Arguably the weirdest part aside from this mystery pill they took. Heck, without the masks, am I even reporting on this to you guys? 2 dudes poisoned themselves on a hill. Yeah, probably not. The lead masks they were wearing are clearly homemade, appearing to be snipped from lead sheets. One of the theories, and it's kind of understandable, is that they made these to protect themselves from some kind of radiation. But if so, why would they just protect the eyes? Why wouldn't you make a whole face helmet? Because radiation's blasting you like shotgun shells, right? So why just the eyes? So that doesn't make sense. Besides, these guys are supposedly educated with electronics and therefore some science, right? But we can't ignore the fact that these are the 60s, where people were totally obsessed with rockets and radiation and Martians and... Wait, did I just say Martians? In March 1967, so 7 months after the men were found dead, writer Charles Bowen wrote in Flying Saucer Review, so take that with a grain of salt, that several days after the bodies were found, at least 2 respectable newspapers in Rio reported that a resident said she saw a round, orange UFO going up and down above Ventum Hill. Remember that lady? She comes out with that 7 months later, when it's already kind of a sensational story. So that makes it a little suspect. What is interesting though, is some police reports involving the 2 men before they died. So on May 2nd, 1966, so 3 months before the bodies were found, Miguel, Manuel, and their friend Elciel Gomez participated in an experiment on Atafona Beach, a tourist spot near Campos where they live. At 9 p.m., there's this huge explosion that produces a ball of fire that lights up the sky and was heard for 10 kilometers away. Witnesses say they felt the freaking ground shake. A movie theater was interrupted because of a panic. This explosion drew a lot of attention, even from the Navy, who had to start an investigation. But we don't know any more information about that. Those near the beach reported a strong smell of sulfur coming from the tract of land on the beach where there were tire marks, or looked like that. 1 month later, in June, so now 2 months before the bodies are found, another report claims that Manuel, Miguel, and their friend Elcio again built a device in Manuel's garden that exploded. One article I found had an interesting report of yet another man, also an electronics technician, found dead also on top of a nearby hill 4 years before they were found. Also with a similar lead mask. And no toxicology report either. So for sure, there's strange things afoot with the local electronic repairman community. Imagine you go through the trouble to make a homemade lead mask, you schlep up a hill and die, only to find out you ain't even the first to do it. That's gotta be relevant, right? And in case you're wondering, this was no suicide pact. The very fact that they waited for and kept the receipt for the water bottle implies that they intended to go back and get their refund for it after the trip to Vintum Hill, okay? So, 3 dudes are known to be experimenting with something that causes 2 explosions. The only one surviving being Elcio Gomez. Well, he tells police that they were all part of a group that called themselves scientific spiritualists. Somebody find out where L. Ron Hubbard was in 1966? In fact, a 4th friend of the trio said that Elcio had claimed on multiple occasions to be able to incorporate spirits, whatever the heck that means, and that the 4 of them used to gather at the TV repair shop for long spiritual sessions. He said that Miguel and Elcio were the most enthusiastic of them, with Manuel saying soon before they went to their fateful trip on Vintum Hill, "I am going to watch a definitive experiment. After that, I will be able to tell if I believe it or not." What is it? Elcio later said the 3 of them, him, Manuel, and Miguel, were interested in trying to contact Mars, and that the explosion had been the unfortunate failure of a device they built to pursue that goal. Adding to this information, in Miguel's home workshop, police found the tools and the scrap metal used for the lead masks. They also found a book titled Life on the Planet Mars, filled with handwritten notes. And the book is all about how Mars is an inhabited planet. And there's even a chapter on reincarnation, explaining how the spirit of the human dies on Earth and is reincarnated on Mars. It also had passages highlighted pertaining to intense luminosity in relation to spirits. Okay, so someone expecting to be exposed to intense luminosity might well choose to protect their eyes with lead shields. Okay, alright. Look, I'm a sci-fi geek. My favorite book of all time is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein, published in 1961. So pretty much when all this Mars obsession was going down with these guys, it's kind of happening everywhere. Mars and Martians and rockets and space, it's all over the zeitgeist at the time. Heck, Area 51 was built in 1955, so the suits, the aliens, the spaceships, UFO stuff, it's legit new and exciting subject matter for everyone in the world at the time. Okay, so the lead masks make sense. They're expecting high luminosity that could damage their eyes. They're just nice to meet the Martians, alright? So there's only one remaining question left. What the heck is up with those capsules they swallowed? Well, 2 weeks after their deaths, a Sao Paulo newspaper published a statement by a self-described professor of yoga. I mean, the sources on this story are just mwah. He stated that he knew that the local scientific spiritualist community would often take psychedelic drugs, and it was his opinion that these 2 men died from an accidental overdose of psychedelics. So, with all of this information available, it seems clear that Manuel, Miguel, were a part of a group interested in triggering spiritual experiences with a combination of psychedelic drugs and bright lights, possibly on specific hilltops, so that the Martians could land easier. It's clear that they legit thought they were going to participate in alien contact in Niederoy on Vintum Hill. And that lady saw a UFO that night, but again, she only said that after the news hit. So it's hard to take that report too seriously. I mean, if she had said it before, like the day she saw it to anyone other than her husband, all right, she could have just also seen whatever luminosity experiment they were doing as well, even though there was no machine left behind near their bodies, so that doesn't make any sense either. As a final note, they were for sure missing a lot of money. Somewhere between when they left home in Campos and got to Vintum Hill, they had lost thousands of dollars, and it sure as heck wasn't spent on raincoats and water bottles. Whatever happened to that money, it was never sorted out. So what do you guys think? Thanks for watching.